What's up, nerds? I'm Jared, and if there's one thing I dig more than a gripping narrative, it's an action flick that'll blow your mind with explosions, stunts, and epic one-liners. Today, we're blasting into the past, diving into the neon-soaked, grunge-infused world of 1990s action cinema. We're gonna sort through the cinematic chaos of the decade with a tier ranking, separating the genuine diamonds from the cinematic rubble. Get ready to revisit the era of massive muscles, cheesy one-liners, and villains so charismatic they'd make Cruella de Vil look like Mary Poppins. So buckle up, my fellow action aficionados, because we're about to navigate the action-packed landscape that was the 1990s. It's gonna be a wild ride, so hold on to your hats, because things are about to get explosive. All right, nerds, we are back for part 2 of ranking 90s movies, and this is a pretty good list we got here. Once again, categories stay the same: best movie ever, pretty darn good, good, meh, or I don't recall it, less than good, and trash. If you recall, if you watched part 1 of this video, we only had one movie that I considered trash, and it was Waterworld, because Waterworld, well, was trash. Watery trash. Today, though, a little bit different. Looking through these, I think it's gonna be a good day, Tater. First up, right off the bat, the movie Seven. Now, this is gonna kind of stink here because Seven's a good movie, but it's not a good action movie. It's more of a psychological thriller. Seven is, like I said, more of a psychological drama. Kevin Spacey does a great job in Seven, along with Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, especially the final scene in Seven, which is one of the best pieces of cinema I think ever captured on screen. What's in the box? But having said that, I don't consider Seven an action movie, and we are ranking action movies, so there's a little action, but I'm gonna put it in meh. And the only reason it goes there is because like I said, I don't consider it an action movie. Up next, Stargate, one of my favorites of all time. So the original Stargate had James Spader and Kurt Russell in it, sort of really kicked off the franchise. 2 years later, we had Stargate SG-1 that lasted for 10 seasons, which had a spin-off of Stargate Atlantis, and then even Stargate, the third one, what was it called? Universe, Stargate Universe, which was abruptly canceled, and we haven't had any Stargate since, and that sucks. But Stargate, this original movie, had a bunch of setup for what would become SG-1, including the characters. I don't remember liking it when I first saw it, though, when it first came out, because I didn't quite understand. Then after I'd made my way about halfway through SG-1, I went back and watched the movie, and then I thought it was awesome. It's action-packed. I didn't think it was just the greatest movie ever, though. I didn't think, and it's still to this day. It was good setup, but, Stargate Continuum was one of the movies they did after the series had ended. Continuum, had it been made in the 1990s, would absolutely be on this list, but I don't think it was. It absolutely was not. It was in 2008. Anyway, Stargate got a lot of action. The first time opening the Stargate was pretty awesome, which they even tried to keep in G1 for a little bit. Every time they'd go through the gate, they had the whole wormhole sequence, and then they finally just shortened it, which made a lot of sense. So Stargate, it was good. It could have been a little bit better, but that's what we had, and it was good. Up next is Speed with Keanu and Sandra Bullock. Also Jeff Daniels and Dennis Hopper. Speed was definitely an intense action movie, and it was one of the first movies that I can recall, short of a 1970s movie called Duel, where you could film pretty much most of your action sequences on a bus, and that was the set. But he gets under the bus, he gets off the bus, he gets on the bus blows up. What more could you ask for in an action movie? And of course, in the final scene, they're off the bus and they're on a train. So you're still inside of a very small set kind of thing to have that much action and intensity. So I really enjoyed Speed as far as action. It is going to rank highly on this list, I think. Where are we going to put it? I think we're going to put Speed in pretty damn good, because it was pretty damn good. Wasn't the greatest movie of all time, but it was pretty damn good. Up next is Tombstone. Now, you've probably heard different critics talk about Tombstone before and how just, for the most part, historically inaccurate that this movie is. But, we're not trying to make a biography. We're trying to make an action movie. And Tombstone delivered on the action. And the cast helped. Val Kilmer, Kurt Russell, Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton. What could go wrong? That's part of a Dreamcast, I think, right? Not a Sega Dreamcast. But Tombstone is action-packed, and it's still got a good story. They do a fairly good job. I thought the movie Wyatt Earp, which has Kevin Costner in it, I thought that was a more accurate movie, but I thought Tombstone was a better movie because it had a lot more action-y type stuff in it. And again, I'm not hating on the historical parts of it too much, but one thing everybody gets wrong in the Tombstone or OK Corral movies is, the fight lasted like 35 seconds. And, that doesn't do very good on screen. You can't do that. So you gotta prolong it a little bit. I thought Tombstone did a good job telling the Wyatt Earp's revenge ride. That was a montage that, unlike a lot of montages, it was pretty good because it had old-timey West music to it, and Kurt Russell hurting a bunch of people. So Tombstone, I think, we gotta put it in the pretty darn good, but it definitely goes there. Up next, Soldier. Now this one barely made it because this was in 1999. I love this movie. Once again, it has Kurt Russell in it. It has a very young Jason Isaacs, or Snape as he is somewhat more recognized. Gary Busey's also in this. And so I feel like Soldier is kind of underrated. I feel like it was. I don't feel like it got, because Kurt Russell has like maybe 7 speaking lines in the entire movie. If you haven't seen this, basically a futuristic soldier, and they are basically trained to follow orders, not ask questions, and basically not to think, but still solve problems, if that makes sense. Rigorous training from when they're kids. Kurt Russell's character's been to war for, that's his job. His job is to go to war. And while a new batch of genetically engineered soldiers come in, Kurt Russell ends up on a trash planet, a planet where I guess everybody takes all their trash. Strange. No, it wasn't New York. Anyways, but he befriends some inhabitants of that trash planet, and fun ensues. But definitely action-packed. There's a bit of downtime where he's on the planet and he's a soldier and he's kind of really, really out of place. But the finale is action-packed, and up until he gets dropped on the planet is action-packed. So a lot of fighting, a lot of weaponry, and so yeah, Soldier was a great movie. If you have not seen it, you should go check it out. I believe it's on Amazon Prime. Soldier is going to go into the good category. It was action-packed. I think where Soldier gets kind of hurt is the story is good, but it's weak. It kind of bogs it down a little bit, but it's still good. All right, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I don't think there's any question that Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is going to rank high on this list, because for 1990 or 91, when this came out, it was a blockbuster. It was one of I put this right up there with like 1989 Batman. Very complete story, couple unbelievable things, but that you have in action movies. On the soundtrack, let's not even stop. Michael Kamen did a fantastic job with the soundtrack to this movie. And for some of these 90s movies, the music was everything in the movie. So when you got a good soundtrack to help you tell your story, it just makes it way better for me. I think one of my favorite scenes in this, though, with Alan Rickman is the interaction between him and the witch, which, if you watch the extended version, is kind of alluded to that might be his mother. Anyways, it gives off that vibe. But yeah, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Christian Slater, Morgan Freeman, Alan Rickman, Kevin Costner. Everybody's in this movie. I like how you find out that Will Scarlet character, or Christian Slater's character, Will Scarlet, is a half brother to Kevin Costner. The fight scene in this are pretty good for 91, being that it's a lot of swords and a lot of bows, and there's a catapult in there. Old-timey weaponry. I love old-timey weaponry. So, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, we are going to put up in the... You know what? I'm going to go ahead and put it in Best Movie Ever. And which, by the way, if you watch part 1, we can have more than one Best Movie Ever. And this doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best movie ever. That's just where I'm ranking it on this tier. If you disagree with me, please comment below. I'd love to hear why you think I'm wrong. Or, if you do agree with me about everything so far, comment below as well. Just comment below. Even if it doesn't make sense, just comment. We love those comments. What's up next? Mission Impossible. The first Mission Impossible. The first Mission Impossible, I'm not gonna lie, there's been so many of them, I don't really remember it. I do remember that, like, how Tom Cruise became such of a BA, because I think, if I recall correctly, I don't think, like, he wasn't such a badass in the first one. He was, like, trying to figure things out. It was definitely an action movie, and he was definitely a secret agent, and he did some cool stuff, but, like, somewhere between part 1 and part 2 and part 3, like, he turned into, like, this ultimate badass, and I just don't remember that in his character in the first one. I might be wrong. I might have to go back and watch it again. So I'm gonna put this over in the meh, don't recall, only because I don't remember the first one. So I need to go back and watch it. Up next is The Negotiator with Kevin Spacey and Samuel L. M.F. Jackson. The Negotiator, I think, is one of those that it might be a little underrated too. I didn't see it when it first came out. I think I saw it on TNT or something, like years later, and I was like, this movie's great. Samuel L. Jackson's framed for the death of another cop. Samuel L. Jackson is a negotiator, and so he has Kevin Spacey. Well, Samuel basically takes over the Internal Affairs Division and holds a bunch of people hostage, which is not the way you clear your name, by the way. So he has Kevin Spacey brought in from the other side of Chicago, who's another negotiator, because this guy has like a 0 victim rate. Anytime Kevin Spacey's on the job, nobody gets hurt. And Kevin Spacey hadn't been in the news lately because he was in the news a lot for a while, so I don't even know if I can say his name. But back before all that happened, he was in this movie, and he did a good job, and it was a good movie. I won't go into anything else about it, so if you're going to hit me up in the comments below about anything about Kevin Spacey, we're not talking about Kevin Spacey, we're talking about this movie. Having said that, and I'm not even going to get really too much into it, other than it was a 90s movie, and it is on this list. So, a lot of action, a lot of psychological stuff that you had to figure out. I'm just going to put it in good, because I think that's where it goes. It was almost pretty damn good, but alas, just good. All right, up next is The Fifth Element, one of the greatest movies ever made. Fifth Element is just, it was out there, but like, it all made sense out there. It was just like, oh gosh, a futuristic kind of thing where like they got everything right and everything made sense. Usually when you try to do movies like this, it all falls apart or something doesn't line up. And The Fifth Element is just great story from start to finish, a lot of action from start to finish, funny, that's great too. One thing I remember about this movie is the cigarettes. And the cigarettes are like really, really, really long filters and like that much cigarette at the end of it, because smoking's bad for you. But in the future, they were like, it's still bad, but we fixed it with a 4-foot-long filter. But then the story and how it all came together at the end, and she was able to help them overcome, what was it, a meteor? The meteor gonna hit them? Yeah, I think it's a meteor. Fifth Element, no doubt, Fifth Element has to go up here in best movie ever, because it's definitely got that status. Last Boy Scout. Wow. Last Boy Scout. It has been a long time since I have seen The Last Boy Scout. I remember the basic, I don't know if it's fair to put this in the no recall, because I remember I enjoyed it, but I don't know if it was good or pretty. You know what? Let's split the difference. This is unprecedented. We've never had this happen before, where a movie is in both categories, because Jared doesn't remember it, but he remembers it was good. Just what degree of good was it? All right, up next is Crimson Tide, and this goes up there with Soldier, Tombstone. I mean, this one, I'm going to go ahead and rank it right now, and then we'll talk about it, but this is definitely pretty damn good. Denzel Washington, Viggo Mortensen, Gene Hackman, James Gandolfini, treasure trove of stars in this movie. The whole setting is on a submarine. More room than a U-boat, but submarines are pretty cramped. Great movie. So like I said there, we have already ranked it. It is going to in the pretty damn good category. Up next is Independence Day, and wow, Independence Day. That's one that I feel like we don't have to talk about. Like, I feel like I could put some scenes up at any part in this movie, and you're going to know exactly where it's at, what it was, and where you were the first time you watched it, and how it made you feel. And it probably made you feel good, because I don't think there's anything about the movie Independence Day that I don't like. It is better than pretty damn good. And because it's better than pretty damn good, we got to put it in best movie ever. This list is way more action-packed and good than part 1. So I'm glad I get to do a part 2. This is much more fun. But yeah, Independence Day, putting it up in the best movie ever category. Up next is Die Hard 2, Die Harder. Second of the Die Hard movies, I thought it was just as action-packed as the first one. Technically a Christmas movie also. More banter from Bruce Willis in this than you did, because in the first one, he's kind of solo. He's by himself, running through the Nakatomi Plaza. And in the second one, he's still kind of by himself, but he's got people. Like, he's got the chief of police, and then, of course, the army unit comes. And so he's around people, and then he's got kind of one of the people that work in air traffic control. He kind of befriends, and they kind of work together to figure out a way to get everything to work. Wasn't as good as the first Die Hard. It did have a little bit more action, I think, though, and it gets started off quick. The first Die Hard, it starts off pretty quick, but you have a little bit of a setup there. This one, just right off the bat, he goes into an airport and starts shooting people. Well, kind of. They're bad guys. They're bad guys, okay? He doesn't shoot good guys in the airport. Jeez, people. But, it was pretty darn good. Die Hard 2, Die Harder. Now, the only thing that would have made more sense is if they would have called Die Hard with a Vengeance, Die Hardest, but they didn't, and they should have. Up next is Con Air. What do we need to say about Con Air? Con Air is another Bruckheimer film. It came from that same sort of the rock style, real fast-paced montages, kind of get certain parts set up. Nick Cage, John Malkovich, one of those that has a great cast of characters again, John Cusack. Just an overall great feel, a lot of explosions, and again, most of the movie takes place in one setting inside of an airplane until they land in, Las Vegas and tear up that town because they land on the strip. Pretty darn good. Have to go pretty darn good. I'd noticed it too, like, not to get all statistics on you, but like, have you ever noticed the more sample size we have, we just get a natural bell curve here? Ain't that neat how statistics works, folks? Sorry, nerd moment. Up next is Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow is probably one you don't remember. Or maybe you do. I don't know. But it had Christian Slater and John Travolta in it, and it basically is about John Travolta steals a nuclear warhead and Christian Slater has to go stop him. And apparently when you lose a nuclear warhead, it's referred to as a broken arrow, or it was back in 1997 whenever this came out, 96, 97. I didn't hate the movie, but I don't remember too much about it. It's one that I have to go back and watch, so I think I'm going to go ahead and stick this in the don't recall, just because I don't remember all the specifics. I do remember that I liked it, but I liked a lot of stuff in 1997 that I probably wouldn't like now. Up next is Last Action Hero, and Last Action Hero is, well, it wasn't that good. I mean, it was fun when you were a kid. Like, watching it now, it's just kind of like, I did like how they had a spin on you not having to reload the gun after 6 shots or however many in your magazine, or everyone has a 555 phone number. Stuff like that was cute and kind of cool. But the movie overall, like I said, good if you're a kid, not as much if you're an adult. Still don't hate it, but it was less than good as far as 90s action movie goes. Let's be honest. We're just being honest here. All right, up next is From Dusk Till Dawn. Now, if you want action-packed, full of really ridiculous stuff, look no further than anything with Quentin Tarantino in it. And this is a prime example. And naturally, Quentin Tarantino is in his own movie because that's what he does. He stars opposite George Clooney. Harvey Keitel's in this. Juliette Lewis is in this. Selma Hayek is in this. Cheech Marin's in it. Danny Trejo. Tom Savini is in it. Yeah, so once again, I've noticed that a lot of the action movies do better when they have an action-packed cast. This one's no different. George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino are some robbers, some road bandits, and they kidnap a family, and they go to this bar to meet up, but it turns out, whoopsie doodles, it's a bar full of vampires. What could go wrong? Well, all sorts of things. I think Juliette Lewis and George Clooney are the only two that survive. And then he meets up with the people that are supposed, which I believe the person he was meeting up with is Cheech Marin. But then George Clooney's just like, all right, kid, see you later. We made it. And so she's just like there. He just leaves her. But From Dusk Till Dawn was a good movie. Definitely action-packed. And again, we're talking about action. Do they have action in them? Yes, they do. Pretty darn good from Dusk Till Dawn. All right, up next, we probably have one of the greatest action movies in the history of action movies, and that is Under Siege with Steven Seagal. Now, while Steven Seagal has the personality of a kernel of corn, this movie wasn't bad. And sorry, Steven, I don't mean to insult you that way. Anyways, Under Siege, of course, people jumping out of cakes. Tommy Lee Jones is in there, and it takes place on a boat. And Steven Seagal, one thing about Steven Seagal in the 90s that you have to give the man credit for is he would kick the crap out of you. One thing you also have to note is that Tommy Lee Jones, fantastic actor, and can play a good guy, a bad guy. Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones can do it all. I don't think this is the same movie, actually, without Tommy Lee Jones. I think if you replace Steven Seagal with a Van Damme or something like that, I still think you got a good movie. But I think the moment you take Tommy Lee Jones out, it's not the same movie. Under Siege, action movie, is good. It wasn't pretty darn good. Well, I don't know. Was it? Should it go here? Should it go here? I don't think so. I'm going to leave it with good, and I will await your hate in the comment. All right, 2 left. End of Days, the 1999 Arnold Schwarzenegger thriller about the devil coming back to Earth and needing a human host on New Year's Eve to take over the world. Sounds cool, doesn't it? But it's based on that. Schwarzenegger basically has to fight the devil. This one is one, too, that I would almost... It's action. There's a lot of action in it, but there's a lot of thinking in it, and there's a lot of things that... Or I would put this kind of like Seven. This is a psychological thriller that has a lot of action. Unlike Seven, it had a lot of action. I feel like they could have done a little bit better with the storyline, and a lot of times in Arnold movies they can. They just haphazardly kind of throw stuff against the wall and be like, well, Arnold will figure out a way to make this movie good. And he does, but that's all it is. It's just good. It's almost meh. It's almost meh. If it's not Schwarzenegger and it's somebody else, very easily a meh movie. All right, and to finish off our list, The Mummy. We all love The Mummy, don't we? Let's talk about the cast. Of course, Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, Arnold, how do you say his last name? Vosloo? Is it Vosloo? Imhotep. Jonathan Hyde's in this. Kevin J. O'Connor's in this. He plays Benny. John Hannah, the quirky brother. Oded Fair's in this. He was Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo. He's in a bunch of stuff. You have a host of people that are in this that you've seen from other movies, but you probably don't recognize them or know their name. What I like about The Mummy, it's so actiony and funny. It was one of those action movies that was a comedy kind of, which made it I think, better, because I think that the story was there. Even if it seemed kind of rushed sometimes, it was still good. It didn't get in the way. You didn't feel like you barely felt like sometimes, like it felt like things progressed a little too quickly, but because it was so good, it didn't matter. And when those couple of things come together like that, it makes for a good movie. And in this case, it makes for a pretty damn good movie. So that's where we're putting The Mummy. We're putting The Mummy up here and pretty damn good. And that's where it's gonna stay. Well, that rounds off our list right there. What do you think? Bell curve still? We still got a nice little bell curve going. Well, guys, what do you think about part 2? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? What did I do wrong? What would you have done different? Leave a comment, and don't forget to like the video while you're here. We do so appreciate that. Always remember to hit that subscribe button too, and smash that notification bell. We like to call it smashing the dinghy, and that lets you know when we post other videos, and then you can go watch them, like part 3 of this, which will be here next week. As always, thank you for watching. You can find various links to other social media stuff in the description to the video below. And while you're here, consider watching one of our other things that could be popping up to the left or right of me right now. I'm not going to point because pointing is rude, or so my mom said. Thanks for watching. Good night.